Yeah, so these are a lot of fun to dig into because they attempt to explain the minimal facts, or the facts that we have about surrounding Jesus' resurrection. So there's four main ones that get brought up, and the last one is the most popular. But I'll say these four, and there's other ones, but they're not popular, and they're easily shoved aside as nonsense. But sometimes you got to dig into those, and I hope you do. But these four are the conspiracy theory, the apparent death theory, the displaced body theory, and the hallucination theory. So conspiracy theory says that the disciples stole the body and started proclaiming that he rose from the dead. The problem is that the disciples had no concept of a bodily risen Savior in that time. Their thought of the resurrection was at the end of times. Then people will be resurrected. They didn't have any concept of a Savior who would rise bodily after he died. So this idea is completely foreign, and just points to that the conspiracy theory is not a good theory. Secondly, people don't willingly die for something they know isn't true. And if in this theory the disciples stole the body and lied and said that Jesus rose from the dead, and then they're being persecuted for their message, a lot of them died as martyrs, they would have been holding on so sincerely to this lie they knew was false, and that's just not a good theory. The apparent death theory is the one where the swoon theory is what it's called. Jesus didn't actually die on the cross. He revived in the tomb. He escaped, and then he convinced his followers that he had risen. This is a little ridiculous because Roman soldiers were professionals at killing people. This was their job. They would kill criminals, and they knew how to kill people. They knew how to tell when someone was dead or not. This was what they did for a living. Also, Jesus was tortured extensively, and so he would have, even if he didn't die on the cross, he would have died in the tomb. This is some sort of So, and lastly, this bruised, beaten, and bleeding man coming out of the tomb would be in need of medical attention and not really able to actually convince people that he had risen from the dead. So that's that one doesn't actually hold a lot of water. The displaced body theory is the one where perhaps Jesus' body was moved from the tomb, maybe by Joseph of Arimathea or Nicodemus. Those guys came and wrapped his body and put him in there. Jewish laws prohibited moving a body after it was interred, except to a family tomb. The criminal graveyard was close to Golgotha, so why would they put him here for a little bit and then move him back closer to there? That doesn't make much sense. Also, once the disciples started claiming that Jesus rose from the dead, whoever moved the body would be in a position to say, "Hey, no, he's right here. Here's his body. I have it right here," or "I put it over here earlier." They would have been able to come up with that. So none of those three are actually held by scholars right now. But the last one is probably the most popular. It's the hallucination theory. This one says that the disciples had hallucinations that Jesus rose from the dead. That grief hallucinations. They were bummed that their leader was gone, and so they all kind of manifested that he was there. This doesn't actually doesn't hold a lot of water either, because hallucinations happened in individual minds and not to entire groups, which Jesus appeared to. He appeared at different times, different places, to different people, unbelievers and believers alike, and as the risen bodily Lord. If they had seen hallucinations, let's say they had, they were more likely to conclude that he had gone up to heaven, not actually risen from the dead, which is a foreign idea. Because in the ancient world, visions of the dead were evidence that the person was dead, not alive. That this person, if they had saw him after death, oh, he's dead and passed on to the other world, And the hallucination theory doesn't even attempt to explain the empty tomb, which is part of the minimal facts theory. And so those are the four main theories that you have to deal with when coming up against the resurrection hypothesis, is what they call it. But the resurrection, so all four of those don't do as good of a job as explaining the evidence as the resurrection does. The resurrection fits well with all of the actual evidences, and as what we see, the Christian faith coming alive and flourishing in this hostile environment is the best explanation, far and away, from any of these other ones. And so I think you have to do that. You have to know some of these things. You have to dig into them a little bit if you're going to defend the resurrection, especially Christianity, because as Paul says in 1 Corinthians 15, our faith rests on Jesus' resurrection.